And welcome back to our next installment of the Positivity Bias, book by Rabbi Mendel Kalmanson. We are on chapter 11, and the topic we're focusing on now is the concept of Tracht gut wird sein gut, and we're going to talk about that soon. But the idea of focusing on focusing on the positive. Um, there's some people that are known to have, part of their personality is that positivity bias. And there was a Hasidic master from a few hundred years ago, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev. He was from the town of Berditchev, and he was known as an Ohev Yisrael, a great lover of Jews. And there are numbers of stories of him. The one that's shared here is that when he found a Jew who was smoking on Shabbos, and so Rabbi Yitzchak, he says to him, perhaps you forgot today's Shabbos. And no, Rabbi, I know it's Shabbos. Oh, maybe you forgot, maybe you never learned that it's forbidden to smoke on Shabbos. And he said, no, of course I know it's forbidden to smoke on Shabbos. Just cutting off his last reasonable defense, right? But at that point, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, he says, the Bein Shalom, good heaven, Lord of heaven, who is like unto your people Israel, even when I gave this guy every excuse to get out of he wouldn't do it. He could not do it. He's
very honest.
Such scrupulous honesty. Wonderful. There's another story of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berditchev, same kind of thing, where, let me see if I can just remember this now. There's a guy in town who is still wearing his tallis and tefillin, and he's fixing a wagon wheel. He's busy in a mundane topic while he's wearing tefillin. And one could, most of us would look at that situation and we'd say, come on, that's not respectful to the tefillin to be involved in a grimy job while you're in tefillin. Tefillin is a holy thing. You're supposed to be involved in holy pursuits, learning Torah, prayers and stuff. And Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, he looks at the guy greasing the axle and things, and he says, dear God in heaven, what amazing Jews. They have to be busy with themselves with work, but they can't stop from keeping you in mind and praying the whole time.
That's one way of looking at it. Yeah.
So again, this is the idea of always trying to trying to see the positive in a challenging situation. There was a cute story that he shares here in the book. This was a story that goes back to 1978, and Lubavitcher Rebbe was.
That is a cute story.
You like that, right? So
Yeah.
and it's so funny because we all, Lubavitchers, we all wear this black frock and a black hat, or Shabbos you have a tallis on, and the running joke is that when the girl gets engaged and she's sitting with her friend up on the upper balcony looking down on the men's section, and really, which one are you engaged to? Which is your chassan?
I don't know.
He's the one with the black hat, the glasses, and the beard.
Yeah, right.
Go pick him out from that crowd, right? So it oftentimes happens in shul that you could be standing there and some kid comes up and grabs your hand thinking you're Tati because it's the same kapata and talis, right? So in this particular story, 1978, a kid did that to the Rebbe. A little kid did that to the Rebbe, grabbed the Rebbe's hand and was holding the Rebbe's hand, and then wiped his snotty nose on the Rebbe's coat. And when the mother heard about this, she was aghast. She was floored, and she wrote an apology letter to the Rebbe about how upset she was, how pained she was that this could happen. And the Rebbe writes back to her, pained. What a beautiful, beautiful thing that a kid can feel so comfortable and so comfortable in that environment that it just brought me great pleasure the heartfelt sincerity and innocence of a little child. The Rebbe says it was beautiful. So, so again, it's like, it's a conscientious choice that we're making. Is that are we focusing on the negative things, or are we looking at the positive things? And so we can train ourselves to see the positive, to focus on the positive. But it's training. It's effort. It
I
doesn't
agree.
come.
I agree. It's easier sometimes to see the negative things than it is to look for the silver lining in the cloud.
I remember there's also a story here about Reb Chaim Gutnick of Australia, and he once reported to the Rebbe that he was giving a class. He was giving a class on marriage and motherhood, and he complained to the Rebbe that only one person showed up. Only one mother showed up. The Rebbe's response was, "And how many mothers did Moshe Rabbeinu have?"
Yes. Response
Like,
on that. Yeah.
what's wrong with one mother and the generations she'll be? It was worth it for one mother, So again, if you have that optimistic, positive focus, you're always looking at the good side of things. Then that's immediately where we go to. There's a story in here about Purim. Purim came, and the kids were making so much noise you could hardly hear the Megillah. And some of the adults were upset about it. And later the Rebbe mentioned that understandably you want to hear the Megillah, but what about the beauty of the children who were so into the celebration of Purim and God's joy at seeing the children so engaged? We have to look at that too. That's an important thing. And I remember being present on an occasion in 770 when, again, people were, the way 770 is designed, it has a flexibility factor. You don't have theater seats, bolted to the floor. You have wooden benches and wooden tables, and they're all movable, and they can be set up in different configurations. But it also tends to lend itself to the environment of so many people, so comfortable in home. It's like their home, it's their synagogue, that, if it's crowded, you walk across the tables, you walk across the benches to get, where you have to get. And I remember an occasion when there were Sfarim, holy books, on some of the tables, and the kids were, crossing across the tables on stepping on some of the books, and people were yelling at the kids, just holy Sfarim, holy. And again, the Rebbe later commented that the Fabrengen, it's not appropriate that children should be running across the books, but at the same time, they're here and they're excited to be here. And that's a wonderful thing. So again, finding the positive things to say in each of the occasions.
Especially when the negative is really minor. So
hang on just a sec.
This chapter, what do you call it? Like a couple steps from what we were just talking about. It's titled "The Cup is Half Full," and that really is appropriate.
Yeah. It's how you see it. It's the way you perceive it. And you said the cup is half full. He ends the chapter off with a fascinating story. The Rebbe had a serious heart attack back in 1977, and the Rebbe's doctor was trying to impress upon the Rebbe that he really has to take care of his health. He really.
That was what that was exactly what the story that followed that title. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so he says, the doctor says, if you don't be very careful about your health, there's a 25% chance this is going to come back again. And he asked the Rebbe, do you understand? And the Rebbe smiled and says, yes, I understand that if I do absolutely nothing healthier about it, I'm still a 75% chance this will never come back. It's all how you look at it, right?
That's right. I could just see the doctor shaking his head, but yes.
Absolutely. Any thoughts on this example of choosing how you perceive something?
Oh, well, I definitely think it's a happier way to live.
Yeah.
And focusing on negativity.
yeah, searching and trying to find something positive within the environment.
I mean, I think there are times when you have to accept the negativity of some instances, but if you can look at most things and find a positive thing, especially if there's a minor, like I said, and most of them, to me, most of everything in this chapter was minor things that had happened, and to me, in the big ball of life, it's not life and death, and you can find the silver lining in that cloud.
Yes. And, even in life and death, um, one of the examples I talk about often is my brother-in-law, my wife's only brother. He passed away in a tragic hang gliding accident.
Oh yeah, you told me about that.
And even in that time, in that moment of despair, uh, the very next moment was to see the positive and find the positive. He'd been on vacation. He was with his wife. He was with friends on vacation that he enjoyed. He was hang gliding, which he loved to do. He loved to fly, and this was a really free flight. And so you start finding the positive things in the moment, even in those kind of situations. Um, Sometimes you can't. Sometimes things are too tragic, and it's beyond human capacity to understand. And in those circumstances, as we've said before, in those circumstances, it's not for us to try and understand, but rather, what do we do from there? Is we focus forward and focus on what we can do positively. As we were talking about just before the class, now I'm learning Mishnayos Lalias Neshama, a teenager who was killed tragically in the accident in Meron on Lag BaOmer. And so there's no way we can possibly see anything positive in such a tragic environment. But we need to know then, what can we do going forward? How can we create and build from there? And obviously, the learning of Mishnayos is an important part of that, because the word Mishnah has the same letters as a neshama, a soul. So that's one way. But also, what more can we do? What positive things can we do? And so we look for the positive side of things. And if there's nothing positive to see because it's that tragic, then the next question is, okay, given the circumstance, what can we do to bring more light to the environment, to bring more light to the situation, goodness and kindness.
As we talk right now, one of my comrades in the Jewish War Veterans, yours too, he's in your post, Nate Firestone. You probably don't know him, but he was in the Air Corps, and then in the Air Force, and he's being buried at Shalom right now. And I almost thought about going to that, but I had to pick up my granddaughter. And but he was 102 years old, and it's a life to be celebrated when somebody lives to that kind of an age.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
he survived World War II, and he was a prisoner of war, and he survived that, and led a very good life after that. I mean, I mean, it's a life to be celebrated.
Yes, and I think the incredible part of that, the celebration within the celebration of life, is to have seen what he saw, experienced the things that he did, and then to go on and live a very positive life.
Oh yes, he was
That's tremendous.
always in good form. Yeah, up until a little besmirched after 100.
We have to focus on the positive. Absolutely focus on the positive. And that's the conclusion for our discussion today. Same time next week.
Sounds like a plan.